Hi everybody, and welcome back to Plastic Models by a Regular Dude. And my next project, the Tamiya 1/35th scale M2A2. For a little bit of background on the Tamiya M2/M3 series of vehicles, this kit started its life in 1985 as the Tamiya M3 Bradley. After that, they added another to the lineup. I think it was the same year, but it was the M2 Bradley, which had an interior. Now that kit I actually built in probably 1988, I believe, and I still have the kit. As a matter of fact, here is a photo of it. That was built a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. But anyway, then after that, the next version was this one here, the M2A2, which was 1991, and it was basically the same kit. They're basically all the same kit. It's just they've added new parts each time. So after that came the M2A2 ODS infantry fighting vehicle, and then there was a M2A2 ODS Desert Bradley. I think it might have had some different accessories or something, not sure, but I myself, I kind of prefer the earlier ones. Like I like this one. Main reason is I like stuff from, you know, modern armor from the Cold War era. But anyway, so I have had some experience with this kit. I enjoyed the one I built before. I'd like to actually build another one of that kit with the interior and maybe do some detail work to it. But for now, I have this one. Again, as you saw on the opening screen, one of the opening screens, I'd like to give a thanks to Eric Davenport for sending me this kit in a batch of kits that he sent. Bradley's always been one of my favorites, and I'm really looking forward to getting this one started. So let's go ahead and take a look at the box and the box contents. Typical Tamiya box has the stuff on the front here, you know, photo or a painting of the vehicle. Side here gives one of the marking options, which is a NATO scheme. The 3-color. Same picture on the end of the box. This one here gives an overhead view of the NATO scheme, and then a nice photograph of it being used in the desert. The other end, same deal. So that's the outside of the box, and here's the inside. Typical of this era of Tamiya kits. So we get a number of sprues. We have the hull. We'll take a look at all this here in a minute. I just want to get everything out. Get down to the bottom of the box. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 bags of plastic, instructions, decals, and tracks. All right, let's look at the instructions first. And this is flashback city for me, because boy, I remember Tamiya instructions being like this, because when I built models as an adult, I built a lot of Tamiya kits, and this is the way they did their instructions back then. And it's funny because you got a little bit of yellowing going on here, but in usual fashion, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 different languages here. Looks like English, German, French, and I'm assuming Japanese. Open up. Suggested tools and cements. Some read before assembly. One of the things I really like about this era of instructions is they had these little appropriate, you know, cartoons doing the little speech bubbles. In this case, an American tanker, and it just kind of, I don't know, it's a wave of nostalgia looking at this. See, looky there. Do not move loading ramp until cement on hinges is set, or you're going to get squished. That's awesome. So anyway, cement, cutters, it just gives you, then it gives you a list of the paints, the recommended paints in the Tamiya X and XF series, which is gloss and flat. Then step one starts with the hull, more hull. I'm not going to go through all the instructions. We'll do that as we build the kit, but it's a fold out type deal. And you know, a lot of people complain about it. It is kind of a bummer because you got to spread everything out, but you can fold it back. It's no big deal. And yeah, there's maybe a transparency in there somewhere. I'll have to look, but it's showing a transparency. And if not, I have some thin transparency type material. So anyway, that is pretty much the instructions, final instructions. Then it has some painting guides here. You have a desert scheme, which is, I believe this is the one they called the chocolate chip desert scheme from, say, the first Gulf War era. And then you have the woodland scheme here, which is pretty cool, and it gives you little examples here of how it's supposed to be painted. Then we have a painting scheme here, well, applying decals, painting and applying decals. We have the NATO scheme here, which is real brief. It only shows that one side, but it recommends, somewhere I saw it, it recommends that you use the box for painting the NATO scheme because it gives all three views in color on the box, both sides, front, rear, and the top. So you don't have to just rely on this black and white business here. And then here's the desert scheme here. And unlike most newer kits, they'll have like an individual unit, the time period, and all that kind of stuff. This one's real basic. You got NATO scheme, you got desert scheme. Then it has decal application instructions, stuff like that. So that is the instructions. Next, let's take a look at the decals. These are older, obviously, since from 1991. Tamiya decals, and I am going to attempt to use them. Now, I will note that these decals, even though they are Tamiya decals, compared to the decals they make nowadays, these are pretty thin feeling. So it'll be interesting to see how they work being this old. But everything looks in register. Looks pretty good. These here, I may paint those markings on, or whatever. But yeah, those are the decals. Then we have the tracks. Good old Tamiya vinyl tracks. So these are not too awful bad. Not really any in connector pin detail or anything like that. As a matter of fact, you can see a little bit of mold seam lines there. I am not familiar with modern tracks at all, so I don't know if these guide horns are supposed to be hollow or if they're solid or what. But these are the old school type where these two oblong pegs fit into these oblong holes, and you use a heated screwdriver or similar device to heat and melt those down, then you smash them with your thumb. Now, it is a pretty primitive way of doing it, but it is remarkably tough, and if you're careful, you can position this joint in a place where you're not going to see it, so it's virtually indetectable. But all that said, I have ordered some aftermarket tracks, and I've ordered the AFV Club single length tracks for the M2, but these aren't bad. If those weren't available or out of stock, I'd just press on and use these. Not too shabby. Okay, first bag has 2 sprues of Sprue A, and they have the stapled ends on them, which really aren't that big of a deal. Okay, so we have 2 Sprue A, and that is road wheels, idler, drive sprocket, and such, all for one side it looks like. And we may end up with some extra parts, I'm not sure. Flash, there's no flash. There are some seam lines going on, but nothing that can't be taken care of fairly easily. Now it has these ball mounts here and these stockless M16s. I think they were still M16s back then, but this looks like the same exact sprue that comes with the 1985 version. And basically you could either put, I think depending on the vehicle you used, you could use these blank off ball mounts, or you could use these with the M16 sticking out the sides so the guys inside could fire at external targets. But those were eliminated by the time it got to the M2A2, if I'm not mistaken. I'll know more once we get into the kit, but I'm pretty sure that's the way it worked out. But the detail's good. I mean, it's a 1991 kit, so you know, obviously it's older, but the detail's really good on it. Bolt detail's good. You have nuts with bolts sticking through, so the detail is pretty nice. Nothing to complain about. So that's it. 2 Sprue A. Sprue B, it's a big one. These are the sides of the hull, the rear drop gate, the rear door, commander's hatch, commander figure, which I think I'm going to be using, the rear upper deck hatch, part of the tow missile launching system, the mantlet for the 25mm Bushmaster gun, all that jolly stuff. Actually, I think that is the driver's hatch. I'm sorry. I think this is commander's hatch up here. But anyway, the front. Now this part here will not be used either. This is the front. I think it was called a. It was part of the weighting device on the Bradley. It was supposed to allow. It was part of the system that allowed it to be amphibious. It was a gate that popped up, or actually I think it folded down and created like a bow type thing, so it kind of allowed it to go into water and traverse water, but that was eliminated as well. And I was correct that this particular sprue is dated 1985, so this is from that original M2 and M3 series of kits. So this is really old, and again, keeping in mind the age, it does look really good. So I think, see, even this coil up cable, usually the cables on the molded styrene cables are pretty sorry, but this one actually looks pretty good. It's not bad. I don't know if I'm going to use it, but it does look pretty good. So anyway, that is Sprue B. Now here's something interesting. This is Sprue C, and it's in a heat sealed bag instead of stapled. So I'm wondering if this is a different, if this will have a different date on it. We shall see. So let's flip it over. Yep, 1991. That's what that is. So this looks pretty good. This is the upper hull, the turret parts, and there are a couple of sink marks here from these locating pins. So it'll be interesting to see if there is something that will be over that, or if I'm going to have to fill it in. But I think, no, there's a part that goes over that, so no big deal. But yeah, that's that. This mesh here, this louver screen type thing, looks really good. So yeah, that's Sprue C. And then we have Sprue E, which is another heat sealed bag. So I'm thinking this is, well, yeah, obviously it is, because it's got these additional armor plates for the sides. So that is Sprue E, and that one, whoa, weird. Let's see if this one has a date on it. M2A2 Sprue, or Super Bradley, that's what it says on the back there, but it doesn't have a date. But anyway, Sprue E. So this is all the additional armor plating, supplemental armor plating, whatever you want to call it, and the part of the turret here, that's where that piece of plastic came off. And it looks like a coax machine gun, I'm assuming. A bunch of ammo boxes. And then this right here, which is, I can't remember what that is, some kind of a tarp-like thing. But that is Sprue E. Then we have the ever-present and ubiquitous poly sleeves, poly caps, whatever you want to call them, that Tamiya supplies with their kits. And I really wish that all manufacturers did this. That way you can assemble the wheels, you can install them, and then you can also remove them if you need to and not have to worry about, you know, glue or anything like that. Makes it easier to paint and weather the lower portions of the vehicle. And then we have the lens part in here as well, like I was talking about earlier, the clear part. So there's that. And finally, we have the lower hull. And it says Tamiya Military Miniatures M3 Bradley, 1985 Tamiya, made in Japan. And as you can see along the side here, there's all kinds of spots where interior details are glued onto the sponson sides here for the M2 version with the interior detail. So that's kind of groovy. So this, as you can see here, there's this slotted area on the front, and the reason it's built like that, and you can see this here also plays into what I'm about to tell you, as well as these rails, is a lot of these older Tamiya kits could be motorized. They'd come with a motor, the axles would stick out here and power the drive sprocket, and then this was the switch to turn it off and on. So that was a thing. I actually built one of their motorized kits once. It was actually a remote control. Wasn't radio control, it was remote control. Had a 2-lever handle that also held batteries with wires running down to the vehicle. It was a Tiger 1, as a matter of fact, and you could drive it, and had 2 levers so you could turn the vehicle. It was pretty cool. But, you know, detail and dimensions sometimes suffered. Now, I haven't heard that the dimensions are incorrect on this because of the motorization kit. But I couldn't find an awful lot on these on the internet as far as build reviews or anything like that. So, anyway, one nice thing about some of these older Tamiya kits, and a lot of older kits as a matter of fact, is the fact that these swing arms are molded onto the hull. Now, detail I'm sure suffers because of that, but you've got wheels over top of this, so the detail is going to be obscured somewhat, and then with the side skirts that come on these type of vehicles, it's further going to obscure detail. So it's not as big a deal in a case like this, but what it does do, it gives you all perfectly lined up and level wheels and suspension. You don't have any floaters, like wheels that are floating up off the track because something might not have been glued in place exactly right. So no complaints about that. So that is the lower hull, and that concludes the parts. The kit the version I'm going to do is the NATO scheme. I've always wanted to do a NATO scheme. The last Bradley that I did not have the airbrushing skills to paint a camouflage scheme, so I went with the solid olive drab color. But I have acquired the skills needed, and that is what I'm going to do. So for that, I'm going to be using the Mission Models acrylics. And I have the NATO brown, NATO green, and NATO black to accomplish that. So we'll see how that works. So basically that's it. That was just a quick introduction and a look at the box contents of the M2A2 infantry fighting vehicle, sometimes known as the Bradley. So I think that pretty much concludes this video. So the next time, in part 2, we will actually start on construction with this kit. And my plan is to do, I'm going to do a step-by-step. And if you've been watching my videos and noticed that my step-by-steps have been pretty lengthy, part of it has to do with the nature of some kits being more complicated than others. Tamiya kits are fairly straightforward, so the parts should be shorter and I should be able to fit more, hopefully, in each part. So if you are a beginner and you're wanting to watch how one of these kind of kits comes together, feel free to watch, and hopefully you can learn something, and it should be pretty easy to follow. So that's it for now. This ends part 1, the intro of the Tamiya 1/35 scale M2A2 Bradley. So if you have any experience with one of these kits, please put some comments down below. I'd love to hear what you thought about the kit if you built it. So that's it. Thanks for watching Plastic Models by a Regular Dude, and until next time, I will see you all later.